Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, How to Reduce 3 Key Risks of Managing Mobile Devices. 2 housekeeping points before we get started. The session is being recorded, and you will receive a link over the next few days by email. Secondly, please submit your questions throughout the presentation in the Q&A section, and we will be addressing these towards the end of the webinar. Next slide, please. Regarding deployment and management of mobile devices, we couldn't ask for a better team of speakers to explore this topic with you. Doug Moll is the Director of Solutions Architecture for Barcodes Group. Doug has been in the industry deploying mobile equipment and services for 17 years. He leads a team of talented technical experts responsible for pre-sales consulting on the entire portfolio of Barcodes Group solutions, with a strong focus on mobility and deployment planning. As a strategic account executive at Barcodes, Bart Mack provides consultations with customers of all sizes regarding their device management. In the presentation, he will cover how he assisted in easing the burden of a large deployment of one of his accounts, Greenworks Tools. Thanks for joining us today, Doug and Bart. Bart, please take it away.
Thanks, Edwin. So just a little bit about Barcodes. Basically, whatever problem you have, we have the experience to fix it. After 25 years in the field, we've developed and implemented strategies for nearly any kind of modern problem modern business can face. In the past few years alone, you've seen the rise of online platforms, e-commerce and mobile devices, and through it all, the dedicated experts at Barcodes Inc. Have prepared our customers for what's next. And it's these kinds of consistent results that have led businesses of all different sizes, including 70% of the Fortune 500, to utilize solutions designed by Barcodes. Go to the next slide there. So many customers don't know that our tech expertise allows us to offer robust, practical, and customizable solutions that prepare you for the future while also keeping you grounded in the present. Thanks to a really collaborative environment of partners and experts, we can provide specialized guidance and consulting, industry-leading services, leading-edge technologies, as well as develop a solution that prepares your business for new growth. You ask, how do we know, our strategies are going to work for you? Our experience tells us so. So going into some of those, Doug's going to explain some of the risks that are coming up today.
Thanks, Bart. Yeah, so we'll start with an examination of 3 of the major risks with mobile device deployments, and then get into some of the tools that we can use to address them. The goal of this conversation is to have you as a mobile device user self-assess how vulnerable you are to these various risks and what you can do to protect yourself. So the first area that we wanted to cover is security. This has been a huge pain point for everybody in 2021 and in today's modern world. Cybersecurity threats are everywhere. A business falls victim to a ransomware attack every 14 seconds. And this is costing the global community of mobile users $6 trillion by the end of this year. What we're interestingly seeing is that a lot of these cyber attacks are on small businesses. A full 41% of cyber attacks are aimed at small business. So some of the top, go ahead, Bart.
Yeah, and Doug, I was going to say, a lot of this in here, are just about what we know about. There's a lot of customers who don't go public with the fact that they've been attacked. So this number's, probably a lot higher than what we are seeing.
Thanks, Bart. Yeah, we're certainly seeing that with our customer base. Many of our end users are reporting issues that are not shared on a wider scale. So we know this is happening to your peers. A couple notes on the trends in ransomware. We're seeing a greater attention towards vulnerable industries. specifically those industries that are a little bit more lax in their security and not as locked down. And then with the move to mobile workers with COVID, there's an incredible gap on mobile devices and mobile workers. Ransomware itself is evolving, so are the defenses, but the ransomware techniques are certainly more sophisticated and varied than they've ever been. We're seeing new variants of ransomware pop up every day. There are 4 or 5 major strains that we're seeing in 2021 that are entirely new. The techniques that ransomware gangs are using are incredibly advanced. We're talking about online forums to share success, platforms. Ransomware as a service is increasingly popular. You can now, as an uninformed, non-technical person, use ransomware just as you would software as a service. There are platforms available that will provide monthly subscriptions to ransomware applications that you can use to target whoever you want. There's affiliate programs, there's revenue sharing, it's technical support. This is all very accessible now for criminals. We're seeing also in ransomware spread to mobile. Hackers have been attacking mobile devices and making them inoperable until ransom is paid to get access to the device back. And that's especially concerning when we're talking about mobile security. We see a full nearly 40% of organizations that have suffered a mobile device related security compromise in the past year. Now that's inclusive of other security threats, but it certainly brings to light how prevalent this issue is. All right, so the second risk that we wanted to speak a little bit about is around device optimization. And this is really fitting into 2 categories. The first is around older devices. It's estimated that there are still 10 million legacy Windows Mobile and Windows Embedded devices in the marketplace that need to be upgraded. This is something that we spoke to in other webinars, but there's a migration to Android devices right now. And there's a lot of reasons that you want to consider this, and security is one, but finding the right device is another one. Customers on older mobile OSs are missing out on 15 to 20% of productivity. Ergonomics is certainly a big factor.
Yeah, definitely, Doug. I hear that all the time from end users. You know, with older devices, the ergonomics cause, unnecessary strain on workers, especially in the warehouse when, the new devices are designed to be lighter and, more ergonomically fitted for a user.
Yeah, we're seeing on average newer devices are 33% less heavy, and inputs are 39% slower on the older devices. The mobile workforce, we've spoken to this in the past as well, is not used to the older platforms, and the traditional green screen or old applications are not intuitive, meaning longer training times, errors, lack of visual confirmation, lack of touchscreen, and then lack of functionality from a hardware perspective, including things like no cameras or limited battery life. So that's the first side of device optimization. But then the second side is after an end user deploys a modern mobile device, we're seeing that our base might not be getting the best out of their new devices. This could be because they're not locking them down. They're not deploying them with an enterprise mobile device management tool, which we'll get into in a little bit here. Or they might not be using the apps to their fullest capability. With a modern platform, these purpose-built devices don't have to run just a single application. It's possible to leverage things like push-to-talk or a suite of applications on a single mobile device. So there's a real risk in spending money on these assets and then not getting the full value out of it. And then the third risk we wanted to touch on is around deployment and support. Oftentimes the hardware and rollout of a new deployment is overlooked in preference to examining the risks with the software capabilities. Companies might be spending millions of dollars rolling out new software, and the hardware can often be an afterthought. And in doing so, the entire project may be delayed or disrupted. The devices that are being rolled out for some of these initiatives are not entirely intuitive and supportable from the IT staff that is used to supporting other resources. So deploying a new fleet of equipment with new tools is a big risk area for the success of a deployment. And then once the devices are deployed, they need to be managed in an ongoing manner. We have many customers that don't know exactly how much equipment they need, what the right spare pool size is, or even where their equipment is. We have plenty of users that don't have clear plans for how devices are checked out and returned at the end of shifts.
Yeah, and Doug, I hear all the time how customers are always talking about employees squirreling away devices, so they don't know, how many they have, problems with loss, things like that. So I think that's a big issue.
Thanks, Bart. And yeah, you can see some of the stats here. 52% of devices are stolen from the workplace, and 70 million smartphones are lost every year. And again, more than 41% of all data breaches are the result of lost or stolen mobile devices. So keeping a tight control on these mobile assets is very important and is a risk if not done properly. All right, so shifting gears, we wanted to look at the data behind some of the costs around these risks, and we'll start by looking at some of the survey data on what's important to IT professionals. So you can see in this chart, the major concern from IT professionals is reduced internal IT support per. So with these assets, how can we get them deployed and running as efficiently as possible with as little time as possible? And then when they do have issues, we want to make sure that we can troubleshoot them effectively and efficiently. Again, with the deployment, IT professionals really want easier setup and ongoing maintenance, and they don't want to be supporting obsolete technology. And all of that kind of comes together with total cost of ownership and keeping that TCO as low as possible. Now, speaking to TCO, we think about what really goes into the purchase of a mobile device. And oftentimes we're looking at just the equipment costs, but that's definitely a mistake. We have multiple sources of data on this that all kind of align, but the one we're showing here shows that hardware is only 27% of the overall total cost of ownership of a mobile device. So for example, if you're spending $1,000 on a mobile device, the non-hardware costs are $2,700 over the life of that equipment. So now that we've talked about some of the risks, we wanted to get into some of the tools that we can use to mitigate these risks and plan for a successful rollout and maintenance of mobile devices. The first tool is definitely the place to start, and we'll have follow-up webinars specifically around MDM. For those that aren't familiar, mobile device management is a tool that can be used for mobile devices to manage and deploy and update them without having to collect them back into an office to manipulate the files, configuration, and setup of those devices. It is super important, especially on the Android platform. We'll get into this in future webinars, but enterprise deployment is only done through an MDM. So we think it's critical to include an MDM in planning for all of these risks. It'll help you lock down your devices, know how your devices are being used, and then keep that support up to date. So, as you're looking at what you're currently doing, you might have a great plan for this and be in good shape, or you might need some help. This is an area that we can help you with, either consulting on what you currently have and filling in gaps, or deploying an entirely new MDM solution for you. Oftentimes, this is something only done at the enterprise level when you have thousands of devices. But I'd like to point out that we have multiple solutions, and we're commonly deploying MDM on 1 and 2 devices at a time through our multi-tenant models. Another thing I wanted to touch on is smart device management. This has become incredibly popular lately. We have multiple solutions for this, but we can use intelligent lockers for device check-in and check-out. This gives quite a lot of complementary benefits along with an MDM. We have cloud visibility on physically where the assets are, accountability to know who has the asset and what state the asset is returned in at the end of the shift, and allows for a very simple self-service check-in, check-out. So you don't have to have anybody in charge of deploying these devices. A user can walk up and grab what they need and be off and running very quickly. Some of these solutions even come with health and battery checks. So when the device is returned, they're going to do some diagnostics and make sure that they're ready to go for the next shift. And as you can see on the right, we can provide that information in terms of devices that are green and ready to go, those that are out and deployed, and those that have problems. So this is, again, very popular to manage some of those issues around right-sizing your fleet and knowing how your equipment is being used. Another tool in the arsenal is screen modernization. This is really interesting when we talk about device ergonomics and use. Now that we're moving to modern Android devices that have capabilities like touchscreens, we can take what has been traditionally a green screen and remap that to a button-based or user select-based or image-based application. And again, when it comes to things like training, this greatly accelerates the onboarding of new workers as we can make it as user-friendly as possible for the workforce that is used to a touch-based device to start using a new technology. We can also automate some of the processes. So instead of 3 clicks to get into a pick mode, we can have a button that has pick and automatically clicks the 3 things that need to get there. And redundant tasks can be eliminated or reduced through workflow optimization. So, we see this with green screen, but there's also screen and application modernization opportunities moving from older platforms to new platforms, depending on what your software application is. So it's an area that we would love to have a follow-up conversation if you're interested in getting the most out of your devices and applications. All right, and the last area I wanted to touch on before we turn it over to Bart to talk about his case study is the Barcodes TrueSupport offering. And again, I challenge you to think through how you are handling each of these with your internal staff and how we might be able to augment what you're currently doing. We don't have to offer this as a comprehensive suite, and we can fill in any gaps that you might have in your processes. I'll speak to this as our comprehensive offering just for understanding of what we provide. So we really look at this in 5 buckets: the provisioning and deployment, the support and help desk, the reporting and analytics, and then the MDM piece, which we touched on, and then overall device lifecycle management. So the provisioning and deployment is where it starts. When we're rolling out a new set of equipment, you might have a new software solution. We want to make sure that this is a success. So in order to do that, we assign a project manager whenever we're deploying mobile devices. We go through a process of collecting the configuration and optimization, a proof of concept and testing if necessary, and then staging all of the hardware so that it's ready to go out of the box with asset labels and documentation as necessary. And then all of that information is available in our service portal that I'll get to in a second. So after the devices are deployed, we need to support them. And again, Barcodes is equipped to do that through our web portal, phone, and email support. We have tier 1 through tier 3 support, really intended to augment whatever support your existing IT is capable of. Again, this equipment is usually just complicated enough that it's outside of the wheelhouse of most IT organizations, and we are able to fill that gap. And again, the data that's captured at the initial purchase will be in our web portal. Our TrueView web portal will show all purchase and asset history, as well as a comprehensive view of what's happening in terms of RMA and help test tickets. So with this data, we get really actionable intelligence on what the main issues are. If you have multiple locations, we can identify trends between the locations or users. And what we like to do with this data is combine it with the data that we're getting from the MDM in terms of device usage and deployment, and provide that data back to our customers in whatever cadence makes sense, whether it's a weekly or quarterly business review where we can review all that data and again, provide actionable intelligence on what to do with it. So summing that all up, we're involved in making sure that you have the right devices for your deployment, that you are deploying them successfully, that you have a plan for ongoing maintenance and MDM, and that you're aware of trends in the industry, device roadmap, all the way through to disposal and recycle of equipment at the end of its useful life, and then around again when new products are available.
Yeah, so looking into some options of how to upgrade your devices for older devices. Device as a service is a really good option because it offers greater flexibility and provides lower total cost of ownership. One of the best parts about doing a device as a service is it's an easy way to avoid technology obsolescence or technology debt. And in terms of being a lower TCO, it's just less expensive than a purchase due to the fair market value option. But those are some of the stats on other areas of why it's popular for a lot of companies to implement this in their strategies. And this will lead into a case study of one of my customers that has implemented some of these things, if you want to go to that. So this is Greenworks Tools, was a company I work with. They have a small IT team that was working in a remote location warehouse. They had a big WMS refresh coming up, and the devices that they had at the time just weren't good enough for what they were going to be using in terms of the software, and the devices were pretty worn as well. In addition to this upcoming project, they also had to do their daily, troubleshooting, things like that. But basically, we came in and provided all of the upfront, requirement gathering, provisioned the devices and configured them and set them up for them ready to go. So this saved a lot of time for their on-site team once they got them. And then, offering support, once the devices are deployed, we can take care of all of the device issues like RMAs or downtime while they can focus on, their business and their operations, being up and running and not have to worry about the devices and let our team handle that. And, moving forward, we'll be able to just handle any of those upcoming, issues or problems or any more future deployments as they come. Just really making their small IT team look, big and mighty in terms of the company, and it ended up being a home run for them. They got it in time because in addition to this warehouse management system upgrade, there was also a couple of other projects that were in flight at the time. So this allowed their team to really focus on, what they're good at and let us, focus on what we're good at.
Thanks, Bart. So I alluded to this earlier, but really what we're hoping that you gather out of this is a self-assessment of how you stand against these risks. So how vulnerable are you to a security threat? Are your devices that you're currently using optimized or ready for a refresh? If they have been refreshed, are you using them to their fullest capability? And then once they have been deployed, how well are you supporting them? Or if you have an upcoming deployment, how prepared are you for that deployment? You might look at this and see that you're in a good spot, or you might identify one or many gaps. And for that, we're here to help. We'd love to have a conversation specific around your situation on where you're at and how we can augment your current IT staff and your existing mobile device needs.
Well, thank you very much, Doug and Bart, for the insightful presentation. So now it's time for them to answer your questions. So if you could continue to enter these in the Q&A area, we'll address them as soon as we can. Also, if you would like to explore how to enhance the deployment and management of your mobile devices using TrueSupport, please reach out to any of the Barcodes group entities listed on the screen. So let's start with the questions. First one, and this probably goes to you, Doug. I've already deployed devices. Can I add MDM to this?
Yes, thanks, Edwin. That's a great question. It's something that we absolutely help with. It does start with that consultation to understand what you're doing and where we can help. As I mentioned earlier, there's an MDM solution regardless of how many devices that you have. You might already have an MDM or have access to similar products across different use cases in your organization, or this might be entirely new for you, and we can offer MDM as a multi-tenant solution. But we'll start with a conversation, see where you're at, see what type of devices, what operating system, and then offer a customized solution to get them onto an MDM. And it is absolutely worth it to consider that, even if you have deployed devices. We can get them onboarded very quickly and give you that visibility that you're lacking without an MDM.
Great. So question probably for both of you. It might be nice to have you both address this. So we've been using Windows. What are the advantages of Android?
Great question. Plenty. I think we alluded to some of them. The fact that you can run multiple applications is a big one. Touchscreen. Security is huge. I don't think we talked on that very much, but the Windows platform hasn't been supported now for some time, and it's been officially discontinued as of this year. So no security updates are available. We're not saying that everybody needs to upgrade right now, because there are other security mitigating things that you can do in terms of isolating these devices if you have to continue running these older devices for whatever reason. And there are some good reasons out there, but there are plenty of advantages beyond just security that make it absolutely essential to upgrade at some point. The fact that hardware isn't supported anymore and repairs will be more difficult. Again, running multiple applications, having a secure platform, ergonomics, usability. And again, we mentioned some of those stats in terms of slower inputs, heavier devices. The 15 to 20% productivity increase alone is worth the ROI. And then the last thing I'll state is the platform is up to date and future-proof. So if you're deploying new Android devices, the current models available are supported for multiple versions of Android and then security updates beyond their final version. So we're expecting 5 to 8 years of support out of new devices deployed today, which should be enough reason to consider a device refresh if you haven't already.
Bart, what do you often hear from your customers? Yeah, I would say, the security piece is probably the biggest, thing of moving to Android. But other than that, just the operating system, as younger people are moving into the workforce and they're starting to, be end users of these devices, it's much easier for them to get accustomed to the Android operating system than these old kind of clunky Windows, CE or, Windows mobile operating systems, which just makes it easier to get them up and running efficiently, less time for training. And yeah, I think they're just easier to get along with the devices.
Well, great. That's all the questions we had, and that's also all the time we had. We're reached the bottom of the hour. I thank you all for attending and appreciate you, Doug and Bart, for presenting. And let's be in touch very soon. Thank you.